So the last bullet, you need adequate hard disk drive space for the operating system, applications, and upgrades. Of course, we need storage for all of the data and things we're gonna write to our hard drive and put into this computer, right? Of course, we need storage. But today we use, it's probably worth mentioning here that today we use a lot of cloud storage, right? So we use Google Drive, drive.google.com. We use Box. We use all of these different services, Dropbox and everything, box.com, Dropbox, Google, drive.google.com. So we use a lot of storage that's not on our computer, and we can load that stuff right off of those drives. So the cloud infrastructure today, our computer models are completely different than what they're kind of telling you here, right? We use hybrid stuff. So like all of your mail, all of your office applications, they might be run in the cloud. They might not even be run on your computer. So very soon you're already seeing that they're taking stuff out of your computers. There's no more CD-ROM drives. So what they're doing is everything's gonna be out in the cloud. So you need to learn now before you're forced to how to secure your stuff in the cloud. And we've got some add-on classes for that. And where we'll talk about all of that kind of stuff. How to do secure DevOps is the class you wanna look at. So development and operations go hand in hand in corporations. And that's actually what we're gonna speak to. But it's also useful for you because you too are gonna need to understand that technology and store your stuff in the cloud. And one, you'll never lose it. So, and then one little joke I wanna add in here, because this is kind of humdrum stuff and it's kind of boring for you as well as for me, but it's important stuff, right? And we're getting some extra stuff, so hopefully it's not too bad. But I saw this thing on, and you can probably search for it. It's a little picture of a cloud, and it said, there is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer, which is true. It is someone else's computer. So the takeaway there is you want to learn how to secure your stuff, and we'll do that in a later class. But anyway, let's get back to this one. So we need adequate hard drive space and OS and applications and upgrades. The point I was getting at is that before too long, you may have just a little tiny solid state drive in your computers for them to boot up, and then that's it. Everything else will be out in the cloud. And then if you're an engineer doing like computing inflection points and all that, you're like, oh man, I need that hard drive space on my computer. I'm an engineer. My stuff takes time and CPU power, and I need storage. It's gonna be in the cloud soon as well. Even for all of these drawings and stuff, everything's gonna be in the cloud. So it's all headed that way. So you just start understanding it now. Okay, so we're gonna plan the installation for Windows 98 and Windows 2000. So these have automated setup programs. They all pretty much have automated setup programs, right? So what the difference is here, what they're trying to say is that prior to these versions, you actually had to interact with the setup. You had to click OK, OK, OK. You could just take the defaults, but you had to click. And these, they can just do it on their own, right? You don't have to do a thing. And the same for OS X today, right? You just click and go. You don't have to do a thing. Same for Windows today. You don't have to do a thing. You can fully automate the install. So you should follow a checklist during setup for optimal results. Make sure you're applying policies and things like that. It's especially true in an enterprise. For your home computer, it's probably not necessary, right? And then installation is complete when the system is tuned, all hardware is working, and applications are ready to use. So what is tuning? Tuning might mean you're tweaking the RAM for this process or that process, or you're tweaking your registry, you're streamlining your hard drive, you're removing some things you don't need, you're adding some other networking components that don't install by default, that kind of thing. Maybe a couple of extra drivers. Maybe even setting up the RAID in your hard drives, that kind of thing. By the way, RAID 0, 1, 5, and 10. We'll talk about this later in a special class. But the RAID is what keeps you from losing your data. It'll mirror the hard drive. RAID 0 is not mirroring. RAID 0 is just one hard drive. But you can have RAID 0 with two hard drives, and they stripe across each other. So you have two drives that contain all of your data. If you lose one, you've lost all of your data, or at least a good chunk of it. And then we have RAID 1, which is mirroring. So you have a hard drive and another hard drive, but you only have one that you can write to. The other one, every time you write to one, it writes to the other one. So that's mirroring. So you can have RAID 1, which is mirroring, with RAID 0, which is striping, right? So we're talking about 4 hard drives. You have RAID 0 on this pair, which is striping. So I write a little bit of data on this one and a little bit of data on this one. So if I have a 4 meg file that I'm gonna write, I might put 2 megs on this one and 2 megs on this one. I just cut in half the write time, right? Striping saves time when you're writing. That's why they use them for databases, because they have a lot of I/O to them, input and output. You're always storing stuff and you're always reading stuff. So the striping saves speed. So that's RAID 0. And then we're going to RAID 1 that RAID 0. So now we've got this set. Every time we write to this set, we're also going to write the same data to this set. So we have the RAID 0 here, and then we have the RAID 1 with the whole structure. So we have RAID 0, and then we take this pair and mirror it with this pair. And that's RAID 1 plus 0, or RAID 10. That's what RAID 10 is. So then we have RAID 5, which is just like a mirrored set of this scaled out for high-speed writes and multiple drives. So if one drive fails, you can just hot swap it and it'll build things, and they have striping and some other stuff. So there's RAID 0, 1, 5, and 10. And you can read about it. Wikipedia has a really good read on that too. So anyway, that's one of the things you can do for tuning here.